The stars had always been quiet, silent witnesses to the passing of time, indifferent to the rise and fall of civilizations. For thousands of years, humanity had looked up at the night sky wondering if someone else was out there, watching, waiting, or maybe, just maybe, dreaming the same dreams. But when we finally reached them, they weren't what we hoped for. It didn't start with violence. No, it began with a whisper. A signal intercepted by a listening station orbiting Saturn. Faint, encrypted, and definitely artificial. The data poured in like a river breaking a dam, strange frequencies, repeating patterns, a structure no natural phenomenon could create. We were not alone. And that simple truth shook humanity to its core. At first, Earth celebrated. Scientists wept. Children stared at stars with wide eyes. Religions reinterpreted prophecies. The politicians scrambled, trying to position themselves as history's chosen ones. But deep inside the global networks, behind firewalls and clearance levels too high for public knowledge, something else stirred. Warnings. Patterns in the signal that weren't friendly. A coded language decoded just enough to realize it wasn't a greeting. It was a scan. A threat assessment. Humanity had been discovered, and wait. For weeks, silence followed. No follow-up transmissions. Nothing in the void. Then the ships came. Not just one or two, but hundreds. Long, black spines stretching like predators in the dark. They didn't land. They hovered. Orbiting the moon, watching Earth from a distance like a hunter measuring the last moves of its prey. They didn't fire. They didn't speak. And that was worse. The United Nations reformed overnight. The banner of Earth united for the first time in history under one logo, one fleet, one desperate purpose. Survival. The fleet was untested. Humanity had warred among itself for centuries but never fought as one. Now unity wasn't a choice. It was instinct. They forced peace into the hands of fractured nations and told everyone, we will stand or we will be forgotten. The first human to die wasn't a soldier. It was a mechanic aboard the research vessel Sagan. She was rewiring a long-range comms array when one of the black ships pulsed. No explosion. No visible beam. Just a pulse. The Sagan cracked open mid-orbit like a glass bottle dropped on stone. No time to react. No warning. No message. Just death. That was the message. It didn't come in words. It came in silence. That's when we sent the voice. A reply crafted by the brightest minds on Earth, transmitted in every frequency known to physics. It said only this. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. We are human. We endure. For a day the aliens didn't respond. The ships hovered. The moon eclipsed one. They remained still, observing. And then they laughed. A vibration through subspace, caught by sensors and relayed into sound. A sound no human should ever have heard. Not cruel or angry. Just amused. As if the idea of humanity standing up made them chuckle. That sound, it did something to people. It played in loops through military bases and civilian networks. Panic spread like wildfire. Some called it a psychological weapon. Others believed it was unintentional, that we were just so beneath them they couldn't help but laugh. That's when the vote was taken. Not by politicians. By the people. 1 billion connected minds, casting their vote through emergency channels. Fight or surrender. Stand or kneel. Humanity chose to fight. They told us we were irrational. That we should submit. Obey. That resistance was illogical. But we're not a species of logic. We are stubborn. Emotional. Flawed. We fight because we must. Not because we expect to win, but because losing without trying is worse than death. The fleet launched from Earth orbit at dawn. A sunlit send-off that turned the clouds red. Ships patched together from every corner of the planet. Some barely functional. Others experimental. They flew not as a fleet, but as a statement. We see you. We won't bow. Among those ships was the Valor, an old exploration cruiser turned war-ready by desperate engineers. It carried no nukes. No plasma cannons. Only a crew of volunteers and a payload designed by physicists who never expected their theories to be tested in battle. A gravity spike, a weapon meant to tear through matter by distorting space itself. Dangerous. Unstable. Brilliant. The crew of the Valor had names, stories, families. One of them, a quiet systems tech from the Andes, held a necklace her mother gave her before liftoff. She never took it off, not even in sleep. Another, a pilot from Nairobi, stared out at the stars every night as if trying to memorize their shapes. None of them had military training. None of them cared. They were human. The first strike came without warning. 3 Earth vessels vanished. Just gone. No wreckage. No signal. Their transponders stopped mid-word. The alien ships moved without thrust, bending space around them like sharks swimming through oil. No propulsion. No logic. We lost half the fleet in minutes. But something happened. They hesitated. When we returned fire, not with energy beams but railguns and old-fashioned explosive slugs, one of their ships flinched. Actually flinched. Its hull shimmered, bent, warped, but it didn't retaliate right away. That delay? That half-second of uncertainty? Changed everything. We learned in that moment that we weren't expected to fight back. Not seriously. Not with effect. We weren't just supposed to kneel, we were supposed to beg. But we didn't. And that scared them. No one really knows who gave the order. The command channels were chaos. Screaming. Static. People dying. Systems failing. But somewhere in that chaos, the Valor armed the spike. The weapon had never been tested at full power. Doing so would tear the ship apart. The core wasn't stable enough to handle the gravity field it produced. But the captain, an aging woman who had once taught philosophy, made the call. They aimed the spike at the largest alien vessel. And they lit the sky. A ripple burst from the Valor. Not light. Not sound. Just space folding, cracking like ice. The alien ship rippled in place, began to fold in on itself, shrieking in frequencies humans weren't meant to hear. It didn't explode. Collapsed into nothing. And then the Valor followed. Gone. No debris. No signal. But not forgotten. The alien fleet hesitated. Just for a second. But in war, a second is everything. We pressed the attack. Ships that barely held together slammed into the enemy. Boarding parties, men and women armed with steel and fire, forced entry where energy weapons failed. Some ships never returned. Some crews were never identified. But we did not stop. Not because we believed we would win, but because we had to teach them. That we do not surrender. That humanity is not prey. And then, the transmission came. Not from the alien fleet. From deep space. Beyond their ships. A new signal. Not laughter. Not warnings. Words. Translated through layers of overlapping dialects. You were not chosen for war. Why do you fight? The world held its breath. No response was given. The question was answered in silence. On Earth, civilians watched the battle unfold in fragments. Children stared at screens showing star maps flickering red and green. Mothers prayed. Fathers clenched their fists. Siblings held hands through static-filled broadcasts. They waited. Not for rescue. Not for peace. But for a sign. That humanity would not vanish quietly. In orbit, aboard the flagship Resolute, a comms officer wept as she read the casualty reports. Not because of the numbers, but because of the names. Names she recognized. Names she loved. People who'd left Earth not as warriors, but as defenders. Her commanding officer approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We warned them," he said quietly. She nodded, voice breaking. They didn't listen. The alien fleet regrouped. Their formation shifted. Tighter. More aggressive. Learning. Adapting. They would not hesitate again. Humanity had made its stand. Now the true war would begin. And somewhere, out beyond the system, something else stirred. Watching. Waiting. Because the galaxy had just learned something it never expected. That the youngest species, the chaotic one, the reckless, emotional, irrational humans, would rather burn the stars down than bow. The enemy moved. So did we. The final transmission from the outer defense line played on a loop. We will not run. We will not hide. We are humanity. And we are not done. Then the line went dead. And the sky went dark. The darkness in space felt endless, but inside the Resolute, tension was suffocating. Every beep, every flicker on the screen was a reminder that the enemy was still out there, still watching, still learning. The bridge was quiet except for the steady hum of systems and the low murmur of voice channels. Orders, updates, prayers, curses, all mixed together in a fragile, uneasy rhythm. Captain Lena stood at the front, her eyes locked on the star map glowing in front of her. It was a map littered with red dots, fallen ships, lost comrades, and a handful of green blips that signified the stubborn survivors still fighting. Every dot was a story. Every story was a person. She didn't let herself think of the faces behind those points. It was easier that way. Easier to do what needed to be done. But her mind kept drifting to the others, the ones still on Earth, waiting for news that might never come. She thought of the families, the children staring at the sky hoping for a miracle. The ones who still believed peace was possible. She hated to break their illusions, but this was war now. No room for hope without steel behind it. "Status report," she said without turning. Her communications officer, a young woman barely out of training, hesitated. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the latest data. Enemy fleet has regrouped, Captain. They're tightening formation around the outer colonies. They're pushing forward on all fronts. Casualties. Too high to count. But the enemy losses are mounting as well. They're adapting to our tactics. Boarding resistance is increasing. Lena closed her eyes briefly. The price was staggering. Each lost ship felt like a piece of her own soul breaking away. But the enemy was changing too. She remembered the pulse, the gravity spike that had destroyed one of their capital ships and then took the valor with it. A victory drenched in sacrifice. She swallowed the lump in her throat. We push forward. No retreat, she said firmly. The young officer nodded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Aye, Captain. Outside the Resolute, the void was a deadly silence. But it wasn't just the enemy that threatened humanity. The war was tearing at the seams of human unity. Governments were strained. Resources scarce. Desperation creeping into every decision. On Earth, the scars were visible. Cities emptied as millions enlisted or fled to underground shelters. The skies over major hubs were blackened with warning sirens and drones patrolling for potential threats. News broadcasts were dominated by battle reports and government speeches promising victory but offering little comfort. In one small town in the American Midwest, a schoolteacher named Clara sat by the window of her childhood home. She listened to the radio, gripping a photograph of her brother who had left months ago to join the fleet. Her hands shook with a mix of fear and pride. She didn't know if he was alive or if she ever would. But she believed in him. Believed in humanity. I hope you're watching the stars, brother, she whispered. We're not giving up. Thousands of miles away in a cramped apartment in Seoul, a young engineer named Jiho stared at a blueprint for a new defense system. His job was to create something that could keep the alien ships at bay a little longer. He worked in silence, exhausted, haunted by the faces of friends lost on the front lines. But every day he kept pushing, fueled by the memory of his little sister waiting for him at home. We fight because we love, he told himself. Not because we want to die. Back on the Resolute, Lena received a message from the fleet's intelligence officer, someone who operated mostly in the shadows. The message was short, almost cryptic. There's more. Something they're not telling us. We found a pattern in their movements. It's like they're hurting us. Lena frowned. Hurting? Like prey being led into a trap? She tapped her comm link. Explain. The response came almost instantly. Their formations don't just guard territory. They're pushing us towards the Orion cluster. We think there's something there, something valuable. Or dangerous. We don't know. But it's why they've held back from total destruction. It's strategic. The word sent a cold wave through her. The war was bigger than anyone had guessed. It wasn't just about conquest. It was about something deeper. Something hidden in the stars. That revelation spread quickly through the command chain. Speculation erupted. Some believed it was an ancient weapon buried in that cluster. Others thought it might be a resource the aliens desperately wanted. Few dared say it might be a secret that could change the fate of humanity forever. But one thing was clear, the war was about to shift. And humanity was about to face its greatest test. As the Resolute changed course toward the Orion cluster, tensions among the crew rose. The soldiers weren't just fighting an alien enemy, they were battling fear itself. Fear of the unknown. Fear of death. Fear of what humanity might become. Lena watched her people closely. Some kept quiet, focusing on their duties. Others let their emotions show, anger, despair, hope. All of it mixed in the small space of the ship like a storm ready to break. One of her closest advisors, a veteran strategist named Malik, approached her quietly. They don't understand us, he said. Not just the aliens but the politicians too. They want a quick victory but war isn't clean. It never is. We need time. Space to breathe. To adapt. Lena nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Time we may not have. Malik looked at her, his eyes hard but compassionate. Then we make the time. We fight smarter. We fight harder. She wanted to believe that was possible. But deep down she knew something else. That war changes people. It forces choices no one should make. And sometimes survival comes at a price too high to count. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the public faced the harsh realities. Rationing was tight. Propaganda was constant. But behind closed doors, families whispered about the loved ones lost. The heroes who might never return. Clara listened to another broadcast, this time a call for volunteers to man the new space defense stations being built on the moon. She debated joining. She wanted to do something. Anything. But the fear of losing more was heavy. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We see you. Stay strong." She stared at the words, a chill running down her spine. Who had sent it? Was it a friend? A stranger? Or someone connected to the enemy? The mystery gnawed at her. She wasn't alone in feeling watched. Across the globe, similar messages appeared, cryptic, haunting, unsettling. The aliens weren't just attacking with weapons. They were attacking with fear. And it was working. On the Valor, the ship lost but never forgotten, the crew's sacrifice became legend. Families lit candles on Earth in their honor. Stories were told of that desperate moment when humanity fought back against impossible odds. It was a symbol. A warning. Humanity was not defeated yet. But the cost was clear. In the darkness of space, the alien commanders debated their next move. They hadn't expected such resistance. Their scanners showed not just stubborn fighters but creative, unpredictable minds. The humans fought with rage and love, with desperation and hope. And that was dangerous. One of their commanders, a creature whose form shimmered between states of matter, communicated with the others. "They are reckless," it said in a voice that vibrated like 1,000 frequencies. "But within their chaos is strength. We underestimated them." "Then we adjust," another replied. "We herd them closer. Let their stubbornness be their cage." The war was becoming a game. But the humans didn't play by their rules. Lena stood again on the Resolute's bridge, staring at the growing cluster of red dots marking the enemy fleet's advance. Her crew prepared for what was coming. She thought of her own family back on Earth. Of Clara and Jiho and thousands like them, ordinary people caught in an extraordinary moment. She spoke quietly into her comms. "We are humanity. We do not yield. Not now. Not ever." Her voice trembled only slightly. Because even in the darkest moments, even when hope feels fragile, there is a fire inside people that no alien fleet can snuff out. The war was far from over. And the true battle, the one for humanity's soul, was just beginning. The Resolute was quiet now, but the silence was thick, heavy with the weight of what was coming. Every face on the bridge was taut with anticipation, eyes flicking between displays and each other, searching for signs of hope or doom. Lena's hands rested lightly on the console, but inside, her heart pounded like a war drum. The fleet was closing in on the Orion cluster, the place the enemy had forced them toward, the mystery everyone feared. Outside the windows, stars blurred into streaks as the ship accelerated. But inside, time seemed to slow. Every second stretched into an eternity, full of unspoken questions and unshed fears. How many of them would live to see tomorrow? How many would be the last to witness the sky they called home? The enemy's presence was like a shadow creeping across their souls. Reports came in of strange phenomena, gravitational fluctuations, bursts of radiation unlike anything recorded before. Ships reported eerie whispers on comm channels, voices in languages no one could decipher. Some crew members claimed to see flickers of ghostly figures in their peripheral vision. The fear was contagious, gnawing at the edges of reason. Lena tried to hold her people together. She gathered the senior officers in the small conference room. Their faces were pale, voices low. They had survived battles before, but none like this. This was not just a fight for territory. This was a fight for humanity's future. "We're walking into a trap," Malik said bluntly. "The enemy knew we'd come here. This isn't just a battleground, it's a crucible. And we're the ones being tested." Lena nodded slowly. "Then we fight not just for survival but for the right to exist." The room fell silent. Each person understood the truth behind those words. They were the last line. If they failed here, the war would end in extinction. Meanwhile, across Earth, hope was a fragile thing. Clara had joined the emergency response teams, helping organize evacuations and support for families. Every day brought new casualties, new heartbreaks. But it also brought stories of courage, of people risking everything to protect strangers, to save lives. One night, as she walked home beneath a sky darkened by war, Clara looked up and whispered, "Please don't let us be forgotten." Jiho worked tirelessly on his latest project, a shield generator designed to protect ships from the strange energy bursts they'd been encountering near the cluster. He poured every ounce of his skill and desperation into it, knowing that lives depended on success. But as the hours passed, the weight of doubt crept in. What if it's not enough? He wondered aloud. What if this war breaks us all? Back on the Resolute, tension snapped when the first wave hit. Alien vessels emerged from the shadows, cutting through the darkness like knives. The fleet scrambled to respond. Weapons flared, shields strained under relentless assault. Explosions rocked the ship. The floor trembled beneath their feet. Somewhere, a cry rang out, pain, fear, determination, all mingled in a single moment. Lena took a deep breath. She barked orders, directing fire, rallying her crew. But even as the battle raged, her mind raced with the question no one dared ask aloud. Was this fight winnable? Then, amid the chaos, the enemy revealed their true intent. A massive ship, unlike any before, appeared at the heart of the cluster. It pulsed with an eerie light, drawing in energy from the surrounding stars. Sensors picked up a buildup of power, a weapon of unimaginable scale. The realization hit the fleet like a hammer. This was why the aliens had led them here. This was the endgame. Malik's voice crackled through the comms. We can't let that ship activate. If it fires, Earth won't survive. Panic flared in the eyes of every crew member. Lena's grip tightened on the console. We fight. We find a way. But as the enemy closed in, something unexpected happened. Signals intercepted from the massive ship began to change, faster, more chaotic, almost like a heartbeat racing in fear. The alien commanders communicated in urgency. Their voices sharp, fragmented. Something was wrong. The resolute science officer whispered, "It's reacting to us. To our presence. It's alive somehow." Lena stared, a chill crawling down her spine. The war was no longer just about weapons and strategy. It was about survival against something ancient, something beyond comprehension. The fleet's attacks intensified. Ships dove through enemy lines. Explosions blossomed in the blackness of space, painting the void with fire and ruin. But the massive ship held firm, its energy building. The tension grew unbearable. Every second felt like a lifetime. The crew waited for the inevitable. The moment when the weapon would fire. And with it, the moment humanity might be snuffed out. Lena looked around at her crew, the tired faces, the brave hearts. She thought of Clara and Jiho, of the countless people waiting on Earth. Her voice was steady but fierce as she spoke into the comms. We fight because we have to. Because this is our home. Because we are human. And we do not break. The stars outside seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy was about to witness a battle unlike any other. The moment of truth was near. And no one knew who would stand when the dust settled. The Resolute trembled as if the very fabric of space around it was unraveling. The massive alien ship's weapon had not yet fired, but something far more unsettling was unfolding. Sensors began to pick up an anomaly, an energy spike unlike anything the fleet had encountered before. The air inside the ship felt charged, as if the silence was a countdown to disaster. Captain Lena stared at the readouts, her brow furrowed. The strange energy wasn't just building, it was spreading. Across the fleet, similar readings flooded in, accompanied by system glitches and unexplained failures. Communications crackled and distorted. Crew members exchanged worried glances, fear creeping deeper with every passing second. Malik's voice broke through the tension, low and urgent. This isn't just a weapon. It's a beacon. A beacon? Lena echoed, heart pounding. Yes, Malik said grimly. Something, or someone, is coming. And we're the signal. The implications hit the bridge like a thunderclap. The alien fleet wasn't just here to fight. They were calling for reinforcements. A force beyond anything humanity had faced. Lena's hands clenched the console. How much time do we have? Not long, the science officer replied, voice tight. Minutes, maybe. The crew scrambled. The Resolute officers relayed orders, trying to prepare for what felt like the impossible. But the panic was contagious. People whispered about the old stories, legends of galaxy-spanning empires and ancient wars that had destroyed entire star systems. In the corridors, faces pale, some whispered prayers. Others simply stared into the void, trying to steel themselves for the storm. On Earth, Clara felt the shift too. Her radio picked up strange bursts, unintelligible but filled with an urgent tone. The sky seemed darker, heavier, as if the stars themselves were bracing for impact. She gripped the photo of her brother tighter, willing him to stay safe. Jiho's shield generator flickered erratically. It's not just a defense problem anymore, he muttered to himself. It's a warning. Something bigger is coming. Back in space, the alien commanders communicated rapidly, frustration and fear threading their alien voices. The great ship was losing control of its energy, the beacon flaring unpredictably. They had not anticipated this. Their calculations had failed. Humanity's resistance was far stronger than expected. One commander, the one who had once laughed at human defiance, now sounded anxious. They are a virus. A threat to everything. The enemy's focus shifted. No longer just about containment, they prepared to evacuate. But evacuation meant abandoning their weapon, and whatever dark secret it held. Lena realized the stakes had just doubled. The weapon wasn't just a destructive force, it was a key. And if the aliens left with it, they might unleash something uncontrollable. "We have to stop them," Lena said, voice steady but fierce. "Before it's too late." The fleet surged forward, engaging the alien ships with desperate fury. Explosions lit the void. The Resolute dodged beams of energy, the crew working in tense synchronicity. Every hit, every maneuver was a battle for survival and for the future of humanity. But then came the unexpected. From the depths of the Orion cluster, a shadow moved, a colossal shape emerging from the swirling nebulae. Something ancient. Something vast beyond comprehension. The galaxy held its breath. The second twist was undeniable. Humanity's enemies were not alone. The war was about to become something far greater than anyone had imagined. Lena's voice trembled as she addressed her crew. "Hold steady. Prepare for anything." And in that moment, humanity's fight was no longer just against the Galactic Empire. It was against the unknown. Against the darkness itself. The final battle was approaching. And the galaxy would never be the same. The moment hung in the void like a breath held too long. The colossal shadow from the Orion cluster loomed closer, a swirling mass of metal and energy ancient beyond measure. The alien fleet faltered, their formations breaking as panic rippled through their ranks. For the first time, humanity saw fear in the eyes of their enemy. Captain Lena stood firm on the Resolute S bridge, every sense sharpened to the edge. The unknown force was closing fast, a living storm of power and mystery. It wasn't a weapon or a ship, it was something older, something that had survived eons beyond the petty wars of empires. The fleet braced. Ships powered their weapons, shields hummed with desperate energy, but Lena knew this was no ordinary battle. It was a reckoning. The ancient force reached the battlefield and released a pulse, a wave of energy that washed over every ship, human and alien alike. Systems faltered, sensors went dark, and voices on comms dropped to whispers or vanished completely. The stars themselves seemed to dim. In that silence, something profound shifted. The Resolute S science officer, eyes wide, shouted, "It's not destruction, it's communication. This is an intelligence." Lena felt the weight of that realization crush her. They weren't just facing a monster. They were facing a consciousness, an entity that had seen civilizations rise and fall like sparks in the darkness. The entity's voice echoed, not through sound but through thought, feelings flooding every mind connected to the fleet. "Why do you fight? Why do you seek war?" The question was simple, yet filled with millennia of sorrow. The fleet was silent. Humans and aliens alike struggled to answer. Lena found her voice trembling but clear. "Because we are alive. Because we protect what we love. Because surrender means the end of everything." The entity paused, and then its presence shifted. It showed visions, images of stars exploding, civilizations erased, endless cycles of conflict. It revealed the alien fleet's desperation, their fear of extinction. It was not an enemy but a guardian of balance. It warned, the weapon the aliens tried to activate could unravel the fabric of space itself, destroying entire sectors and risking annihilation beyond this war. The alien commanders bowed before the entity's judgment, and in that moment humanity's defiance had saved the galaxy, not through firepower but through spirit. The alien fleet retreated, their threat diminished but their existence a lingering shadow. But just as relief began to wash over the fleet, the final twist struck. The entity's voice returned, softer but filled with gravity. "The war is not over. You have passed the test. But the cycle continues. There are others. Greater threats beyond your stars. Prepare." Lena's breath caught. The galaxy was safe for now. But the true battle, the battle for humanity's future, was only beginning. She looked at her crew, at the battered ships, at the fragile hope glowing in every heart. "We fought, we survived. But the stars hold more secrets. And we will face them, together." As the Resolute powered up, leading the fleet away from the cluster, Lena whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." The war for the galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed. And no matter what came next, they would stand, unbroken, unyielding, unstoppable. The fleet moved slowly away from the Orion cluster, the ancient entity's warning echoing in every mind aboard the surviving ships. The silence that followed the retreat was not peaceful. It was filled with questions, doubts, and a heavy exhaustion that pressed down on everyone. Captain Lena watched the stars blur past the Resolute's windows and felt the weight of what they had survived, and what still lay ahead. In the command room, officers gathered around a flickering display showing the shattered remnants of the alien fleet. Many were silent, lost in thought, while others whispered about the battle and the strange intelligence they had encountered. It was clear that the galaxy was no longer the same place humanity had entered months ago. Lena finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "We won a battle today but not the war. The enemy fled but the real threat remains. We need to prepare, together." Malik nodded beside her. The ancient intelligence's message was clear. There are forces out there far beyond what we imagined. We need alliances, technology, and understanding. The room fell quiet again, as if the enormity of the future pressed down on every soul. Back on Earth, the news filtered in slowly. The people listened to reports of the Valor's sacrifice, the Resolute's leadership, and the mysterious entity that had stopped the weapon from firing. For a moment, the endless war seemed distant, replaced by a fragile hope. Clara sat in her small home, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. She thought of her brother, the brave crew on the Valor and Resolute, and the countless lives lost. Her heart ached with sorrow but also with pride. "We are more than just survivors," she whispered. "We are fighters. We are family." Jiho worked tirelessly in his lab, inspired by the new data brought back by the fleet. His shield generator design evolved, incorporating energy patterns gleaned from the entity's presence. For the first time in months he allowed himself a small smile. "We will find a way," he said quietly. "Because we have to." Across the galaxy the alien commanders regrouped, humbled but alive. Their fleet was fractured, their ambitions shaken. Some sought peace, others revenge, but all understood that humanity had changed the rules of engagement forever. Among them, a young officer recorded a message meant for future generations: "We fought not just against humans but against ourselves. This war has taught us that strength lies not in domination, but in understanding." Back on the Resolute, Lena stood alone on the observation deck, staring into the endless black. The stars held their secrets still, but humanity had proven it was ready to face the darkness. Her calm crackled softly. It was Malik. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They want us to know, the world is united. The war has forged something new. A promise." Lena smiled, a mixture of relief and determination washing over her. "Tell them we'll be home. And that we'll bring hope with us." As the fleet set a course back toward the inner systems, a sense of quiet purpose filled every ship. The battles fought had been brutal, the losses painful, but something precious had been won. Humanity had stood tall against the galaxy. They had faced the unknown, and survived. And though the final challenge still awaited, the story was no longer one of fear, but of unyielding courage. Lena whispered to herself, "This is our war. Our future. And we will write it with fire, hope, and unbreakable will." The stars shimmered as if in answer. And the galaxy listened. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more thrilling tales of humanity's courage in the galaxy, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us create even better stories and keeps the adventures going. Don't forget to share it with friends who love sci-fi and epic battles. Also, tell me in the comments, what part of humanity's fight in this story inspired you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas for future videos. Thank you for watching, and remember, humanity's story is just beginning.